In the stillness of a quiet night, under a canopy of distant stars, we begin our journey. Let your mind drift as we travel to another world. A world where humanity lives in the shadow of towering walls and even taller mysteries. This is a tale of attack on Titan, told slowly and gently, like an old story whispered by a fading campfire. We will wander through ages long past and moments just yesterday, from ancient myths to the dreams of a boy who sought freedom beyond the walls. Close your eyes and imagine a gentle breeze over tall grasses. Beyond those swaying fields lies a history etched in both hope and sorrow. Our story spans 2,000 years of legend and anguish, courage and despair. But tonight we will walk this timeline together at a soft, steady pace. With each chapter, let the weight of the day fade and allow the echoes of this mythic saga to lull you toward rest. Breathe deeply and settle in. Our narrative begins before the walls, before the wars, in a time lost to memory and song. A young girl named Ymir steps into the pages of history, and with her first footstep, the foundation of a saga is laid. Let us journey back to the very origin of the Titans. Nearly 2 millennia ago, in a world still wild and young, a little slave girl named Ymir knew only pain and submission. Her days were spent in shackles under the rule of an Eldian king, King Fritz, who hungered for power above all else. One fateful day, accused of a crime she did not commit, Ymir was hunted through the woods like an animal. Arrow and spear whistled past as she fled deeper into ancient forest, tears in her eyes and feet bare and bleeding. In her desperate escape, Ymir stumbled into the dark hollow of a colossal tree. Inside that primordial tree, in its hidden depths, Ymir found something strange and alive. A mysterious, writhing spine-like creature nestled in a pool of water beneath the roots. In that heartbeat of fate, the creature merged with Ymir, piercing into her body. A blinding surge of life and agony followed. Ymir, the helpless girl, transformed into a towering figure of unimaginable power, the very first Titan. Lightning crackled as a giant was born from that tree, its eyes aglow with otherworldly light. When Ymir emerged as a Titan, the forest quaked under her footsteps. She returned to King Fritz, not as a fleeing prey, but as a weapon in his service. The cruel king saw not the frightened child she had been, but unlimited power at his command. With silent obedience, Ymir used her Titan strength to cultivate fields, build roads and monuments, and crush Eldia's enemies. Tribe after tribe fell before the Titan's might. The Eldian Empire was born on the back of Ymir's labors, and King Fritz's dominion expanded over nations. Though gifted with the strength of a god, Ymir remained a slave in her heart. The king rewarded her not with freedom, but with chains of a different kind. He took Ymir as a concubine, and in time she bore him 3 daughters, named Maria, Rose, and Sina. Ymir may have hoped that giving him children would soften his hard heart, but Fritz only saw lineage and legacy. Year after year, Ymir served the crown, suppressing her own will. Her Titan powers brought a golden age for Eldia and terror to Marley and all who opposed Eldian rule. After 13 years of ceaseless servitude, Ymir's story reached a tragic climax. During a rebellion, a Marleyan assassin targeted King Fritz with a spear. In a swift, selfless act, Ymir threw herself in front of the weapon. The spear pierced her mortal body, and the great Titan fell to the earth. As her lifeblood pooled, Ymir's eyes likely searched for some hint of compassion from the king she saved. But the heartless King Fritz only barked orders at the dying girl to rise once more. For the first time, Ymir did not obey. The first Titan's life slipped away, leaving the world of the living in an eerie stillness. Yet Ymir's spirit did not find peace or release. In death, her consciousness drifted into a mystical plane outside of time, a place later known as the Paths. There, under an endless night sky and atop shifting sands, Ymir became something eternal. She was bound to the coordinate, the web that connects all her people. In that silent expanse, Ymir toiled on, molding titans from clay-like sand, obeying the commands of the royal bloodline even long after her flesh had perished. She waited in darkness and solitude, a slave to the Eldian king's blood for what felt like eternity. Back in the living world, the tyrant King Fritz ensured Ymir's power would not die with her. In a ghastly ritual, he had his young daughters consume their mother's flesh, desperate to keep the Titan power alive. Maria, Rose, and Sina devoured pieces of Ymir's body, an act of cannibalistic inheritance that granted them portions of her Titan power. From the essence of Ymir Fritz sprang 9 Titans, each holding a fragment of her strength. These 9 Titan powers were passed down through generations, never truly leaving the world, reborn again and again in different hosts. The power of the founding Titan, the full might of Ymir, remained with the Fritz bloodline, while 8 other Titans were bestowed upon Eldian nobles who swore fealty to the Fritz family. Thus, the era of the Titans began. Eldia grew mightier and more fearsome, wielding the 9 Titans like weapons of the gods, and far away in the unseen paths, the lonely soul of Ymir continued to serve, bound by love, by fear, and by destiny. In this way, Ymir Fritz's curse would echo across centuries, setting the stage for both great triumphs and unspeakable tragedies to come. With Ymir's power fractured into 9 mighty Titans, the Eldian Empire reigned supreme for centuries. Eldian kings wielded the Titans to conquer and devastate. Entire nations were trampled underfoot. Cities were razed only to be toppled by Titans of unfathomable strength. Eldia forced its culture and rule upon the world. The oppressed Marleyans and many others suffered under Eldian domination, their lands occupied, their histories erased in Titan fire. Eldian nobles even turned their defeated foes into mindless pure Titans, unleashing them as wandering weapons of terror across the continents. But great power sowed the seeds of great strife. As generations passed, the families holding the 9 Titans grew proud and jealous. They turned on one another in a struggle for dominance. Civil wars erupted within the empire. Brother fought brother, and the once united Eldia began to fracture. Amid the chaos and bloodshed, the subjugated Marleyans saw a chance to rise from their knees. After nearly 1,700 years of Eldian rule, a final conflict ignited. A cataclysm known as the Great Titan War. In this war, the 145th Eldian king, Karl Fritz, inherited the founding Titan. But unlike his forefathers, Karl Fritz was a man weary of endless cruelty. Ashamed of the atrocities committed by Eldia, he conspired in secret to end the cycle of hate. King Fritz struck an unlikely bargain with the Tiber family, a noble Eldian house that controlled one of the 9 Titans, the Warhammer Titan. Together they crafted a fable, the legend of a Marleyan hero named Helos, who would miraculously slay the devil of Eldia and save the world. This myth was a spark to inflame Marleyan rebellion and unite Eldia's enemies against it. As Eldia's infighting raged and its enemies rallied, King Karl Fritz enacted his true plan. He abandoned the continent altogether, taking with him many of his people, those most loyal and an entire branch of the royal bloodline, across the sea to a remote island called Paradis. Away from the war, far from Marleyan reach, he intended to create a final haven for Eldians. But first, to ensure no one followed, Karl Fritz unleashed the founding Titan's greatest feat. Using its godlike power, he commanded countless colossal Titans to emerge and harden their bodies, forming 3 concentric walls around the territory he claimed. These walls were named Maria, Rose, and Sina in honor of Ymir's daughters, and within them the last Eldian kingdom would reside. As the Marleyans rose up, and the Great Titan War reached its climax, the world heard King Fritz's threat. If anyone disturbed his peace, he would release the millions of Titans sleeping in the walls to trample the earth flat. Terrified of this promise of annihilation, the nations left Paradis Island untouched. And so, the Great Titan War ended not with a bang but with an uneasy silence. Marley's revolution succeeded in part because King Fritz allowed it to. In the aftermath, Marley took control of the continent, and 7 of the 9 Titan powers that once made Eldia unbeatable. Only the founding Titan and the Warhammer Titan escaped their grasp, the founder hidden with King Fritz on Paradis, and the Warhammer secretly held by the Tiber family who now allied with Marley. On the mainland, the remaining Eldian people were not saved by this peace. Branded as devils for their ancestors' sins, those who hadn't fled to Paradis became second-class citizens in Marley. They were forced into walled internment zones, made to wear armbands marking them as Eldian. Oppression simply changed hands. Where Eldia once persecuted Marley, now Marley persecuted the Eldians left under its rule. Eldian children in Marley were taught to be ashamed of their blood, even as Marley began to exploit them as tools, raising some to inherit titans in service of Marley's military might. Thus the cycle of cruelty continued, only in a new form. Meanwhile, on Paradis Island, King Karl Fritz began 100 years of hiding. He erased the memories of the people who went with him, using the founding Titan's power to shroud their past in amnesia. Within the walls, history was rewritten. The populace came to believe that they were the last remnants of humanity, that the Titans had suddenly appeared one day and destroyed the rest of the world. They knew nothing of Marley or the outside lands. The royal family took a new name, Reiss, and ruled from the shadows while a puppet king occupied the throne. Only a few bloodlines, like the Ackerman clan and the Asian clan from Hizuru, were immune to the memory tampering. The Ackermans, once the trusted royal guardians, found themselves persecuted and scattered for their insusceptibility. And so, behind the walls of Maria, Rose, and Sina, a fragile peace took hold. For a century, the people lived simple lives, ignorant of the true world beyond their enormous barriers. They cultivated lands, raised families, and sent out the Survey Corps beyond the walls, now and again in vain hopes of learning more about the Titans that roamed outside. Generation after generation grew up, never seeing an ocean, a desert, or a mountain beyond the flat horizon. They feared the Titans beyond the walls, yet felt secure that the walls had always protected them. For 100 years, no Titan breach had occurred. It was as if humanity had been caged but safe, a delicate dream that they hoped would last forever, until the day that dream was shattered in an instant. On a bright morning at the end of summer, within the sleepy Shiganshina district, by the outer wall Maria, life went on as it had for 100 years. Children laughed and chased each other in the streets. Farmers sold produce in the market, and a boy named Eren Jaeger dreamed restless dreams. He awoke under the shade of a tree, tears on his cheeks, unable to recall why. His adopted sister Mikasa Ackerman watched him with quiet concern. It was just another morning, or so it seemed. No one knew that by day's end, their world would crumble. Eren, Mikasa, and their best friend Armin were typical children of the walls, yet different in their own ways. Eren, fiery-hearted, yearned for freedom beyond the walls. Armin, gentle and thoughtful, shared tales from an old forbidden book, describing oceans of salt water and deserts of sand, wonders beyond imagination. Mikasa, ever watchful, only wished to stay by Eren's side and keep him safe. That morning, as they watched the brave but battered Survey Corps return through Shiganshina's gates after another failed expedition, Eren's resolve to one day join them only grew. His mother Carla pleaded with him to abandon such dangerous dreams. His father, Dr. Grisha Jaeger, gently promised Eren that he would show him the secrets locked away in their basement when he returned from his trip. These small moments of family, of ordinary life, would soon become precious memories before the storm. At the stroke of noon, as the sun dipped behind clouds, Thunder rumbled unnaturally. In a flash of light, an unimaginably tall hand grasped the top of Wall Maria. A colossal titan, nearly 60 meters high, appeared as if from thin air, peering over the wall's edge. Its body steamed, and its flesh was exposed and raw, a horrifying sight looming over Shiganshina. With one mighty kick, the colossal titan smashed open the gate of Wall Maria. The ground shook violently. Stones and wind burst through the district, flattening homes in an instant. People froze in disbelief and terror. The unthinkable was happening. Through the gaping breach poured other titans, smaller but no less deadly, drawn by the scent of humanity. Chaos overtook the streets. Families ran, holding on to children. Soldiers ushered townsfolk toward boats that would ferry them to the inner wall. Amid the panic, Eren and Mikasa raced back to their home, a desperate urge to ensure Carla's safety. They found their house crushed by fallen debris. Beneath a beam was Carla, Eren's mother, her legs trapped and badly injured. Eren and Mikasa struggled frantically to free her, but it was in vain. A looming, smiling titan, a grotesque parody of a human woman with a permanently grinning maw, approached the ruin of their home. Fear paralyzed the children as the titan's shadow fell over them. In that moment, a garrison soldier, Hannes, arrived. He had once promised to protect the Jaeger family. Drawn sword in hand, Hannes faced the titan to defend the kids, but even a brave man's courage can falter. The titan's gruesome grin and fearsome presence overwhelmed him. Trembling, he turned away from the monster, instead grabbing Eren and Mikasa. Carla, holding back tears, begged Hannes to take her children and run. Powerless and broken-hearted, Eren screamed and thrashed in Hannes's arms, protesting with everything he had. As they fled, Eren's eyes remained fixed on the sight that would haunt him forever. The smiling titan lifting Carla from the rubble. His mother's final words were of love and desperation for her children. Then, mercilessly, the titan bit down, ending Carla's life before Eren's horrified eyes. The blood, the crunch of bone, and the sight of his mother's outstretched hand were burned into Eren's soul. Mikasa watched in mute horror, her scarf, the very one Carla had given her, fluttering in the smoky wind. In that instant, something fundamental shattered inside Eren. A child's world ended. All that remained was a burning grief and rage. Hannes carried the struggling Eren and stunned Mikasa to the boats evacuating residents across the river to the safety of Wall Rose. Shiganshina fell to the Titans within minutes. Just when it seemed the nightmare had reached its peak, another new horror appeared, the armored Titan. This Titan was massive and covered in plates of hardened skin like natural armor. With inhuman speed and strength, it charged the inner gate leading out of Shiganshina and smashed it down, breaching Wall Maria completely. Nothing now stood between the Titans and the vast outer lands of humanity. Wall Maria, the outermost bulwark of human territory, had been lost. From the boats and the Wall Rose ramparts, the survivors watched the smoke and dust engulf their hometown. Eren's heart burned as hot as the fires consuming Shiganshina. Through tears of anguish, he clenched his small fists. In that moment he vowed absolute revenge. He would not rest until every last Titan was destroyed. Mikasa, still in shock, held Eren's hand, anchoring him to life even as his fury and sorrow swirled. Armin, who had also escaped, looked on with tears in his eyes, the three friends now bound even tighter by tragedy. By the end of that cruel day, humanity had lost a third of its territory, and countless lives were either ended or forever altered. Among the missing was Grisha Jaeger, Eren's father, who never returned to the family in the chaos. Only later would the mystery of his disappearance be understood. For now, under the looming shadow of Wall Rose, the remnants of the people of Wall Maria began their exodus inward, carrying nothing but grief and scant hope that the walls would keep them safe once more. The fallout of Wall Maria's fall was devastating. Refugees from the Lost Lands swarmed into the territory of Wall Rose, too many mouths for the remaining farmland to feed. In the months after 845, famine loomed. In a desperate, callous plan, the royal government sent hundreds of thousands of refugees, mostly Wall Maria's survivors, on a hopeless mission to reclaim their lost lands. Nearly all of them perished against the Titans, a sacrifice to spare food for those left behind. Among those lost was Armin's only remaining family, his grandfather. The cruelty of the world was becoming starkly clear to Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, even as they struggled to simply survive. Amid this darkness, Eren's determination burned brighter. The memory of his mother's death drove him relentlessly. In the year 847, as soon as they were of age, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin all enlisted in the 104th Cadet Corps to train as soldiers. They would learn to kill the Titans and one day take back their home. The night before leaving, the three of them shared a quiet moment on the rooftops of their refugee camp in Wall Rose. Eren's eyes blazed with purpose. He declared that he would wipe out every Titan and see the world beyond, no matter what. Mikasa silently vowed to protect Eren, as she always had since he rescued her in childhood, and Armin, clutching the precious book of his grandfather, resolved to help them find that world beyond the walls he had always dreamed of. Training was grueling and often harrowing, but in it the young recruits found camaraderie and something like hope. In the training grounds of Trost District, they learned to use omnidirectional mobility, ODM gear, a unique harness with grappling lines that allowed them to zip through the air and around Titans to strike at the only weak spot, the nape of the neck. At first, Eren struggled. His balance on the ODM gear was terrible, and he faced the humiliation of failure. Only later was it revealed that his training belt was faulty. Given proper equipment, Eren demonstrated natural skill and an unyielding spirit. His instructors noted that while he lacked refinement, his resolve to fight was unmatched. Mikasa, by contrast, was a prodigy with seemingly effortless grace and power, ranking at the very top of the cadets. Armin, physically weaker, sometimes doubted himself, but his keen mind and strategic insight gradually became evident. Within the 104th Cadet Corps, they met other youths who would become lifelong friends and foes. Jean Kirstein, blunt and pragmatic, often clashed with Eren. Jean dreamed of an easy life in the interior, far from danger, and couldn't understand Eren's death wish to face Titans. Marco Bot was kind-hearted and idealistic, acting as a peacemaker among more headstrong cadets. Connie Springer, quick and agile, and Sasha Browse, a cheerful hunter's daughter with an endless appetite, who earned the nickname Potato Girl after an infamous incident with a stolen potato, brought levity to the group. Annie Leonhardt, aloof and enigmatic, excelled in hand-to-hand combat. Eren took particular note of her efficient, bone-crushing fighting style. Reiner Braun became a reliable big brother figure to his peers, always pushing everyone through harsh training with sturdy confidence, while his quiet friend Bertholdt Hoover hovered in his shadow with a polite smile. There were also Krista Lenz, a girl with angelic kindness, often seen alongside the sharp-tongued and protective Ymir, who seemed to have secrets of her own. Together, these cadets endured exhaustion, cold, and fear during their 3 years of training, forging bonds that would be critical in the trials to come. By the year 850, the cadets were on the cusp of graduation. Some nights, around the campfire, they shared their hopes and fears. Eren would speak passionately of killing Titans and reclaiming the world. Some, like Connie and Sasha, would laugh and imagine feasts and celebration after victory. Others, like Annie, would listen in silence, their thoughts unreadable. As final evaluations arrived, each cadet decided which branch of the military they would aim for: the garrison to guard the walls, the elite survey corps to venture outside, or the military police to live safely in the interior. On the day of their graduation, the top 10 performers were honored. As expected, Mikasa was #1. Eren, though not top-ranked, stood proudly among the graduates with his fierce ambition undimmed. That evening, as the new soldiers looked out over Wall Rose, an orange sunset dipped below the horizon. For a moment, they felt the future open up with possibility. The worst, they thought, was behind them. But their fight was only just beginning. Fate, in the shape of a colossal shadow, was about to strike again, much sooner than anyone could have imagined. Barely a handful of days after the cadets graduated, as they took up posts in the Trost district by Wall Rose, the unthinkable occurred again. On a morning in the year 850, during the cadets' very first rotating shift atop the wall, the air suddenly crackled with lightning. Eren looked up in disbelief and recognition. The colossal titan had appeared again, looming over Trost's gate just as it had at Shiganshina 5 years before. The colossal giant struck, smashing the cannons and the gate of Trost in one sweep of its massive limb. But this time, Eren did not freeze in fear. Shouting with fury, he led a strike team of cadets directly toward the monster. The colossal titan vanished suddenly in a burst of steam before Eren could land a hit, but the damage was done. The gate lay shattered, and a horde of titans began flooding into Trost district streets. The city erupted into chaos and carnage. Titans roamed freely inside the walls for the first time in a century. The newly graduated soldiers were thrown straight into a brutal battle, hardly more prepared than civilians. Eren and his friends found themselves in the front lines, grappling with the reality of war they had only trained for. In the initial scramble, death came swiftly for many of the 104th recruits. Eren's squadmate Thomas was plucked out of the air and swallowed, a smile still on his face from moments earlier. Mina, Nak, and others fell in gruesome succession. As Eren witnessed his comrades dying one by one, that old fury ignited in him once more. When he saw Armin about to be seized by a bearded titan, terror paralyzed Armin, and he couldn't move. In a heartbeat, Eren intervened, shoving Armin out of the titan's maw, only to have the titan's jaws clamp down on Eren's leg. With a final burst of strength, Eren heaved Armin to safety onto a nearby rooftop. Armin's wide, horrified eyes met Eren's as Eren was pulled into the titan's throat, his arm torn away and blood splattering across Armin's face. Armin's scream echoed as Eren disappeared into the belly of the beast. In the aftermath of Eren's apparent death, despair spread among the surviving cadets. Armin was catatonic with guilt and grief, blaming his weakness. Mikasa, who had been fighting on another front, learned of Eren's fate and nearly lost the will to go on. The boy she had sworn to protect was gone, but with titans still everywhere, Mikasa's resolve hardened. She would continue to fight for those still alive, as Eren would have. Taking command, Mikasa inspired the others to keep fighting and protect the civilians retreating to the inner gate of Trost. However, even Mikasa's strength had limits. Soon she and the others were cornered, low on gas for their ODM gear, and surrounded by titans. It was in this darkest hour that a strange new savior appeared. A rogue titan, one that none of the soldiers had seen before, barreled onto the scene, but unlike the others, it ignored humans. This mysterious titan began to savagely attack other titans, striking them down with feral hatred. The soldiers watched in astonishment as the rogue titan fought on their behalf, seemingly protecting them. Mikasa and Armin noticed something hauntingly familiar about its determination and fury. Under its protection, they managed to regroup. When the rogue titan finally collapsed from exhaustion, its nape split open, and from within emerged Eren, alive and miraculously human again. It became clear that Eren possessed the power to transform into a titan, a power until then unheard of among the people of the walls. Weary and confused, Eren had no memory at first of how it happened, Only fragments of rage and a desperate longing gave shape to his Titan form when he was in the creature's grip. Now, having clawed his way out from the Titan's carcass, Eren found himself and his friends surrounded by frightened garrison troops. The military, unable to comprehend this new ability, panicked. Many soldiers, believing Eren to be a monster in human skin, prepared to execute him on the spot. Amid the standoff, with cannons trained on Eren, Mikasa and Armin stood by his side, refusing to abandon their friend. Armin's quick thinking and heartfelt pleas managed to convince the commander Pixis to give Eren a chance to prove himself. Eren, still reeling from exhaustion, agreed to try to seal Trost's gate, using his Titan power. In a daring plan, the soldiers refueled their gear and cleared a path. Eren transformed once more, this time deliberately, emerging as a Titan in a controlled burst of lightning. He hefted an enormous boulder, one nearly the size of a house, and began carrying it toward the breached gate. Along the way, he momentarily lost control of his Titan self, nearly harming Mikasa, until Armin's voice brought him back to clarity. In a triumphant moment, Eren jammed the great stone into the gaping hole, effectively sealing the breach and preventing further Titan incursions. Cheers and tears erupted from the remaining soldiers. They had successfully defended Trost. For the first time in living memory, humanity had won a battle against the Titans. When the dust settled, the toll was staggering. The streets of Trost were littered with debris and the bodies of the fallen. Among the casualties, one loss struck particularly hard. Marco Bot, the warm-hearted cadet who had helped inspire Jean, was found dead under tragic circumstances. His death shook Jean to the core, forcing him to reconsider his priorities and resolve. In the battle's aftermath, the surviving recruits of the 104th were left to grapple with grief and the shocking revelations about Eren. If Titans could be humans in disguise, what did that mean for their world? Unbeknownst to them, this question would only grow more urgent in time. Eren was taken into custody by the military, awakening days later in a cell. He was visited by Commander Erwin Smith and Captain Levi Ackerman of the Survey Corps, names that every recruit knew and respected. In a military tribunal convened soon after, Eren's fate was hotly debated. Some officers saw only a monster that needed eliminating, but others, like Commander Erwin, saw a potential weapon and hope. Thanks to the intervention of Corporal Levi, who vouched for handling Eren under his watch, the decision was made. Eren would join the Scout Regiment Survey Corps to be used as a tool for humanity's revival. Watching from the gallery, Mikasa and Armin sighed with relief, while Eren pledged his Titan power to serve mankind. In the weeks that followed, those cadets who survived Trost had to choose their paths. Having seen true horror and true bravery, many found new purpose. Jean, haunted by Marco's death, abandoned his dream of an easy life in the military police and resolved to join the Survey Corps alongside Eren, believing change was needed. Connie and Sasha, trusting in their friends and filled with newfound courage, also chose the Scouts. So did Reiner, Bertholdt, Ymir and Krista, each for their own reasons. Annie Leonhardt was one notable exception. She quietly took her place in the military police, slipping away from her former comrades' next journey. Together, the recruits who had survived hell prepared for a new expedition beyond the walls, under the command of Erwin Smith. Though weary and scarred, they bonded over a fragile hope that through Eren's powers and their own resolve, humanity might finally go on the offensive and unravel the mysteries of the Titans beyond the wall. Under Erwin's command, the Survey Corps wasted little time. In the wake of Trost, plans were laid to venture beyond Wall Rose once more. Their aim was twofold: to establish a route toward Shiganshina, to potentially plug Wall Maria and reclaim the lost territory, and to investigate the mysteries that still loomed, including the possibility of more Titan shifters hiding among them. Eren was now a member of Levi's Special Operations Squad, a hand-picked team of elite soldiers assigned to watch over him on expeditions. Among them were soldiers who had survived countless battles: quiet Petra Rao, brash Oluo Bozad, steady Elgin, and thoughtful Gunther Schultz, all led by Captain Levi himself. Living with them, Eren slowly learned what it meant to be a true scout: discipline, trust, and the weight of responsibility. In a remote keep, Eren also met Section Commander Hang Zoe, an eccentric scientist deeply fascinated by Titans. Hang's kindness and curiosity put Eren somewhat at ease. She even gave names to two captured Titans, Sunny and Bean, and gleefully ran experiments, until one somber day the captives were found slain by an unknown culprit, raising the alarming specter of a traitor within the ranks. Soon came the day of the 57th expedition beyond the walls. With flare guns, signaling formations, and dozens of mounted scouts riding out beyond Wall Rose, it was a grand if perilous operation. Eren's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and dread as he passed beyond Wall Rose. For the first time in 5 years, the plains beyond were eerily peaceful at first, but far from the walls, amid open fields, the scouts encountered a new terror: a remarkably swift and deadly female Titan. This Titan was 14 meters tall, with a distinctly feminine form and a chilling intelligence in her eyes. She moved with purpose, intentionally targeting the scouts. To Eren's horror, she displayed human-like tactics, swatting soldiers with precision, covering the nape of her neck to block attacks. Cries and smoke signals filled the air as the formation broke apart under her onslaught. Eren wanted desperately to transform and fight, but his orders from Levi's squad were strict. They must protect Eren at all costs, and he was not to transform unless absolutely necessary. Torn between trusting his comrades and his instinct to battle, Eren obeyed and rode on with the squad. The female Titan continued her relentless pursuit, deeper into the formation, clearly searching for something or someone. Armin, separated in the chaos alongside Jean and Reiner, made a sharp observation: this Titan seemed to be a human in control, like Eren. Her behavior was deliberate. Armin also noted a moment of hesitation when she had spared his life after knocking him down, as if recognizing him. A seed of suspicion formed in Armin's mind about who might be inside that Titan, but the battle left no time to dwell on it. Erwin's long-planned trap sprang shut in the forest of giant trees at the center of the expedition. The towering trees slowed the normal Titans, but the elite squad led the female Titan inside at breakneck speed. Suddenly, from all sides, scouts fired special harpoons attached to unbreakable ropes, pinning the female Titan's arms and legs, immobilizing her against a great tree. The forest shook with her furious bellows. Levi and Mike Zacharias, another of Erwin's best, moved in cautiously. It seemed they had captured the prize, a Titan shifter, possibly the very spy who had been sabotaging them. But the female Titan let out a shrill, unearthly scream that resonated for miles. In response, Titans from all directions converged on the forest, ignoring the humans, and instead devouring the female Titan's immobilized body in a frenzy. The scouts watched in shock as their quarry was seemingly torn to pieces by her own kind. Amid the mayhem, a lone cloaked figure slipped away unseen. The female Titan's human host had used the distraction to escape. As Levi's squad regrouped to escort Eren out of the forest, they were unaware that the enemy now moved among them in human form. Gunther was the first to fall, cut down by a flash of blade. A figure using ODM gear ambushed him, then vanished. The realization hit Eren and the others. The traitor was one of their own, wearing the uniform of the scouts. Panic and anger welled in Eren. Levi was separated from his squad in the confusion, so it was up to Eld, Petra, Oluo and Eren to handle the situation. They raced through the branches, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. Then, with terrifying speed, the female Titan reappeared, regenerating her Titan form and charging at them once more. In a series of brutal moments, one by one, Levi's trusted comrades, Eld, Petra, and Oluo, were slaughtered as they fought to protect Eren. Petra's body was flung against a tree like a broken doll. Oluo's blade shattered against hardened skin before he was crushed. Eld was kicked out of the air, his life snuffed in an instant. These soldiers who had laughed and shared stories with Eren days before were gone in heartbeats. Overwhelmed by anguish and rage, Eren made a choice. He bit into his own hand, drawing blood and transforming into his Titan form with a roaring cry. Titan Eren engaged the female Titan in an earth-shaking duel amid the giant trees. He fought with untamed ferocity, fueled by the loss of his comrades. Fist met fist, roars shook the air, birds scattered as the two Titans clashed. The female Titan was cunning and skilled, possessing a martial prowess that even Eren's wrath could not overcome. In a decisive move, she severed Eren's Titan head and tore his body from the nape, biting down to swallow Eren whole. Eren vanished, captured by the enemy. Yet again, Eren's friends watched him disappear into a Titan's mouth, this time taken by a foe who knew exactly who he was. All seemed lost for the scouts, until Captain Levi and Mikasa joined the fray. With icy focus, Levi pursued the female Titan at lightning speed, his elite skills on full display. He was a blur, slicing tendons, eyes, and joints with surgical precision. The female Titan could not react in time. Under Levi's onslaught, she fell and was momentarily subdued. Levi and Mikasa managed to retrieve Eren from her jaws. Mikasa, in anger, nearly struck the incapacitated female Titan's nape, hoping to kill the human inside, but Levi ordered retreat. He knew their priority was to ensure Eren's safety, and that they were all exhausted. Hurt and cornered, the female Titan chose to flee. The scouts, battered and mourning, trudged back from the forest empty-handed, carrying their wounded and their dead. When the remnants of the expedition returned to Wall Rose, a heavy silence hung over them. The operation was deemed a failure, with devastating losses. As they passed through the gates, common folk hurled insults and stones, angry that so many had died for no visible gain. But few could know what weight Commander Erwin bore. Despite the failure to capture the traitor, his suspicions had sharpened. The female Titan's behavior, and Armin's earlier hunch, pointed toward a culprit among the recruits. Erwin began to craft a risky plan to expose this infiltrator within the last place anyone would expect, deep inside the walled city itself. Back in the Stois district of Wall Sina, the military decided to regroup and reconsider their approach. Eren was confined due to the danger of his power, and the survivors licked their wounds. As the sun rose over the elegant city of Stois, Erwin put into motion his next gambit. Eren's close friends Armin and Mikasa had not forgotten the peculiar behavior of the female Titan. He recalled Annie Leonhardt, their former comrade now serving in the military police, demonstrating a similar graceful combat style during training, the very technique the female Titan used. He also remembered how Annie had been oddly absent during the scouts' recruitment on the night they chose their regiments. These clues were circumstantial but compelling. Erwin agreed to a plan. They would lure Annie into a trap. Armin approached Annie under the pretense of needing her help to smuggle Eren out of the city. Reluctantly, Annie agreed and followed Armin, Eren disguised, and Mikasa into an underground tunnel where she was to escort them. But at the entrance, Annie hesitated. When she refused to descend, the trap was sprung. Realizing she'd been found out, Annie smiled sadly and then pricked her finger with a hidden blade on her ring. In a flash of lightning, Annie transformed into the female Titan right in the middle of Stois district. The peaceful city morning turned into mayhem as Annie's Titan form rose, bursting through buildings. Eren, Armin, and Mikasa were blown back by the force. Eren, struggled to make himself transform to fight her, perhaps due to hesitation at fighting a friend or fear of the destruction it would cause. As Annie's Titan rampaged, swatting aside soldiers and climbing the wall in an attempt to escape, Mikasa's voice finally stirred Eren's resolve. With a roar, Eren transformed and charged Annie in full view of hundreds of stunned civilians. Two Titans grappled in the city streets, crushing houses and shops under their weight. It was a brutal, ugly fight. Annie, desperate to escape, fought savagely. Eren, consumed by righteous fury, sought to bring her down at any cost. Atop the wall, the Survey Corps and military police worked together to cut off Annie's escape and evacuate residents. In a climactic moment, Eren overpowered the female Titan, pinning her down as he prepared to bite through her nape and finally expose the traitor within. Annie let out a heart-wrenching scream, not one to summon Titans this time, but a cry of anguish. Before Eren could seize her, the female Titan's body began to harden and crystallize. Annie encased herself in an impenetrable shell of crystal, preserving her secrets and her life. The fight was over. Annie Leonhardt was captured but unreachable, slumbering within her crystal cocoon. Eren, in his Titan rage, pounded at the crystal until his hands bled, to no avail. Mikasa gently stopped him, and he collapsed, exhausted both in body and spirit. In the aftermath, Commander Erwin was arrested by the Stoic authorities for the destruction wrought in the district. But as the dust settled, the truth of Annie's treachery became known to military higher-ups, vindicating Erwin's actions. Eren and his friends were left with mixed emotions: sorrow that their comrade had been an enemy, relief that one threat was contained, and frustration at the many unanswered questions. Who were Annie's allies? What was her mission? Those answers remained elusive. As the Survey Corps secured Annie's crystal and tended to their wounded, a new revelation sent a chill through everyone's hearts. In the battle's aftermath, a massive chunk had been gouged out of the wall's facade. Within the damaged section of Wall Sina, a colossal Titan's face was revealed, sunlight waking its enormous eye. The walls themselves hid Titans inside their stone, a secret kept by the ruling powers and the religious wall cult. One of the priests, Pastor Nick, begged the scouts to cover the Titan's face from the sun, clearly knowing more than he would say. The scouts did so, and the Titan in the wall remained dormant. But this disturbing sight planted yet another seed of mystery. What did it mean that Titans were literally embedded within the walls that protected humanity? That night, as a hush fell over Stohius and the wreckage was cleared, humanity had survived another crisis. But the true nature of their world was growing ever more uncertain. The battle with the female Titan had ended, yet the greater war for the truth was only beginning. The scout regiment scarcely had time to recover from the battle with Annie when a new crisis struck. Reports came in that Titans had appeared inside Wall Rose territory, seemingly out of nowhere. With Wall Rose allegedly unbroken, fear and confusion spread. The scouts split up to investigate. In the southern lands, Connie Springer returned to his home village Ragako, only to find it eerily empty, except for one small misshapen Titan lying crippled on his family's house. In a chilling moment, Connie thought the Titan murmured a single word to him: "Welcome." The possibility was too horrifying to voice, that this Titan might be Connie's own mother. Though the group pressed on, a dark theory began taking shape in their minds. The Titans terrorizing Wall Rose were not invaders, breaching the wall, but people of the wall transformed into Titans. Meanwhile, a distant outpost called Utgard Castle became a refuge for some of the 104th Cadets, those who had joined the Scouts, and a few veteran Scouts, as night fell. Among them were Reiner, Bertholdt, Connie, Sasha, Krista, and Ymir, accompanied by a handful of others. As darkness deepened, Titans, who normally were dormant at night, launched a surprise attack on Utgard. These titans were unusually active, likely due to the influence of a powerful new enemy, the Beast Titan, sighted earlier from afar. The Beast Titan was an ape-like giant, with a chilling ability to speak and command titans. Unaware of its full threat, the scouts at Utgard fought desperately through the night. On the towers of the crumbling castle, the young soldiers faced their first battle without Eren or Mikasa by their side. In this fierce confrontation, the cadets displayed extraordinary courage. Sacha had earlier ridden to warn nearby villages, demonstrating bravery of her own by saving a small girl from a titan with nothing but a bow and her wits. At Utgard, Reiner Braun hoisted a titan on his back to shield Connie, sustaining a grievous bite to his arm, yet carrying on with indomitable will. Bertholdt stayed close to his friend, eyes wide with panic, but following Reiner's lead. As the situation grew dire, a group of titans began scaling the tower. Ymir, the sarcastic loner, revealed a shocking secret she had kept hidden. She was also a titan shifter. In a heartfelt moment, she entrusted her friend Krista with her real name, and a promise extracted back during harsh winter training, that Krista live proudly as Historia Reiss, her true identity. Then Ymir leapt from the tower, slashing her palm to trigger a transformation. Before the eyes of her astonished comrades, Ymir turned into a small agile jaw titan, and ferociously attacked the swarming titans to protect her friends. The battle was chaotic and brutal. Ymir's jaw titan, fanged and fierce, though much smaller than most, tore into the attacking titans, buying time as the night sky began to lighten. But she was vastly outnumbered and eventually overwhelmed, her titan form battered and limp. Luckily by dawn, reinforcements arrived. Commander Erwin Hang Levi, still injured, and the rest of the scouts, including Eren and Mikasa, who had rushed to the scene upon hearing the distress calls. They slew the remaining titans and rescued the survivors. Ymir emerged from her titan, weakened but alive. In the aftermath, as the soldiers caught their breath, Krista revealed her true name, Historia, and tended lovingly to Ymir's injuries, honoring the promise between them. Reunited on Wall Rose's top, the 104th Cadets had a brief moment of relief, but the revelations were far from over. That very same day, while the group rested on the wall, Reiner Braun sat with Eren and candidly, wearily began speaking words that made Eren's blood run cold. Reiner, the stalwart big brother of the cadets, announced he was the armored titan, and that quiet bertholdt at his side was the colossal titan. The words were spoken almost casually, a sign of Reiner's fractured state of mind. At first, Eren could not comprehend. He thought it a bad joke born of stress. But Reiner was deadly serious. Tearing at his bandages and with anguished resolve, Reiner declared that he and Bertholdt came from a distant land with a mission to wipe out humanity within the walls. They offered Eren a chance to come with them, saying that if he did, there need not be more bloodshed. The air stood still as this confession hung between friends turned enemies. In a flash, all hell broke loose atop the wall. Eren recoiled in rage and betrayal at Reiner and Bertholdt's revelation. Lightning struck as Reiner cut himself, transforming into the towering armored titan in the midst of the scouts, while Bertholdt burst forth as the colossal titan once more, shattering the top of the wall. Amid the explosion of steam and debris, Eren transformed as well, meeting Reiner's armored titan with a ground-shaking tackle. A colossal battle erupted. Eren's titan, fueled by personal fury, pummeled Reiner with hardened fists, trying to crack the armored titan's nearly impenetrable plates. The two giants grappled and roared, each representing bitterly intertwined fates. On the wall, chaos reigned as the colossal titan's massive form caused devastation, nearly swallowing up Ymir and others in the blast. Bertholdt's colossal titan, slow but overwhelming, tried to protect Reiner and deter the scouts. Under Armin and Hang's direction, the scouts launched explosives at the colossal titan's head, causing it to fall. In a desperate move, Bertholdt released a burst of superheated steam, then let his titan dissipate and drop down right onto Eren and Reiner, stunning Eren's titan. Taking advantage of the moment, the armored titan overpowered Eren, breaking off his titan limbs and biting into Eren's titan form to rip him out of the nape. In the confusion, Ymir also decided to align with Reiner and Bertholdt, driven by her own need to know more, and to protect Historia by some bargain only she understood. Clutching Ymir and the unconscious human Eren, the armored titan fled with a recovering Bertholdt in tow. By the time the dust settled, the scouts were left in shock. Ymir and Ymir had been taken beyond the wall, in the grasp of traitors who were once their trusted friends. Hours later, at a forest on the outskirts of Wall Maria, Reiner, Bertholdt, and their unwilling companions Eren and Ymir took refuge to rest. Eren awoke to the nightmare of his situation, bound to the side of the armored titan, far from rescue. In that forest, harsh truths were shared. Reiner, slipping between his warrior persona and the soldier guise he had lived for years, expressed a tortured guilt and a longing for the friendships he'd forged. Bertholdt, tears in his eyes, apologized to Eren even as he stood guard, revealing the heavy remorse he carried for the lives they had destroyed. Ymir, pragmatic and concerned for Historia's fate, probed the warriors for information. She learned that their hometown, Marley, sought something called the coordinate, a power she deduced might reside in Eren. As twilight fell, the relentless scouts led by Erwin caught up to Reiner's group, determined to retrieve Eren at any cost. A fierce confrontation ignited at the edge of the forest. Commander Erwin showed his mettle by leading a horde of mindless titans directly into Reiner as a ploy, even sacrificing his own arm to a titan in the fray, but never faltering in shouting orders to advance. Amid the chaos, Eren was cut free from Reiner's grasp by Mikasa and other scouts swarming the armored titan. All-out battle ensued. Mikasa attempted to strike Bertholdt, who was protecting Reiner's nape on the armored titan's shoulder, while Hang's squad attacked from all sides. It was a desperate struggle of humans against titans and titan shifters. In the melee, a new nightmare appeared. The same smiling titan that had killed Eren's mother years ago wandered into the battle, drawn by the commotion. Upon seeing that grinning horror, Eren and Mikasa were paralyzed by traumatic memories. As the smiling titan lunged, Hannes, the man who had saved Eren and Mikasa on that day in Shiganshina, stepped in to protect them once again. With vengeance in his heart, Hannes fought valiantly, but he was tragically overpowered and suffered the same fate as Carla, devoured before the children he'd sworn to protect. Eren was thrown into despair, his body weak and untransformed, his spirit breaking at failing yet again to save someone he loved. Mikasa, choking back tears, tried to comfort Eren in what they thought might be their final moments, expressing her gratitude for him in a way she'd never done before. Eren, through sobs of rage and grief, swung his fist in fury at the approaching smiling titan, and in that instant, something awakened. A sudden surge of invisible power pulsed from Eren. Instantly, all nearby pure titans stopped in their tracks, then frenziedly turned away from the humans, and instead attacked the smiling titan and the armored titan. Reiner and Bertholdt looked on in disbelief as titans began to obey Eren's indomitable will. Eren had unwittingly activated the coordinate, the founding titan's power to control other titans. The smiling titan was torn apart by lesser titans, erased from existence. The armored titan, beset by swarms of titans clawing at his armor, was forced to drop Bertholdt and flee with the injured Bertholdt in his grasp. Ymir, witnessing this miracle and understanding its implications, chose to surrender herself to Reiner and Bertholdt voluntarily, partly out of gratitude for them saving Historia at Utgard, and partly to try to secure Historia's safety by appeasing the warriors. She left behind a parting plea for Historia's forgiveness, having decided her path. As the warriors retreated, and the mindless Titans followed Eren's silent command away. The surviving scouts gathered around Eren, who collapsed to his knees. None fully understood what had happened, but one truth was clear. Eren Yeager now possessed a power that made him central to the future of both friend and foe. Mikasa and Armin helped Eren back onto his feet, tears of relief and sorrow in their eyes. They had survived barely and retrieved Eren by a miracle, but the cost was steep. Many good soldiers had fallen, and the breach between them and their former comrades, Reiner, Bertholdt, and Annie, was now irreparable. In the aftermath, as the scout regiment returned to Wall Rose territory, they carried with them not only the wounded and the memories of the dead, but also a newfound resolve. They now knew humans could become Titans, that Titans might once have been humans, and that Eren held the key to commanding the Titans themselves. They reported to Commander Pixis and the authorities that Wall Rose had never been breached after all, an unsettling confirmation that the Titans they fought likely came from within. High above on Wall Maria, the mysterious beast Titan watched the scouts depart, a blond man with glasses emerging from its nape and uttering a few cryptic words about ending this cursed history. His presence signaled that the true masterminds behind the chaos were still out there, waiting. But for now, within the walls, humanity had won a fragile respite, and the scouts turned their eyes to their next goal, uncovering the truth hidden in Eren's basement in Shiganshina, which Dr. Yeager had left behind years ago. That truth, they hoped, would illuminate the path forward in a world growing ever more dark and complex. While Titans threatened from outside, an insidious battle brewed inside the walls. The scout regiment had come to realize that King Fritz's regime was built on lies, and that the true royal line ran through Historia Reiss, not the puppet king on the throne. Furthermore, the corrupt royal government, fearing the unrest caused by recent events, moved to assert control by targeting Eren and Historia. Thus began a dangerous power struggle between the scouts and the ruling regime. Commander Erwin Smith, ever the strategist, resolved that to save humanity, they must overthrow the false king and install Historia as the rightful queen. It was a gamble fraught with risk, but Erwin carried the weight of it calmly, even as he faced a potential death sentence for treason. Erwin was soon arrested under fabricated charges, and the scouts were branded traitors. Captain Levi, having narrowly survived the prior battles, took charge of protecting Eren and Historia. Levi's new makeshift squad included the remaining 104th cadets, Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Connie, and Sasha, along with a few loyal scouts. They went into hiding in the city, moving from safe house to safe house. It wasn't long before the military police's interior brigade, under the command of a notorious killer named Kenny Ackerman, tracked them down. Kenny, a man from Levi's own past, led an anti-personnel control squad armed with guns and ODM gear modified for urban combat. In the narrow streets of Trost, Levi's squad was ambushed. What ensued was a harrowing chase through the city. Levi darted through taverns and alleyways with the grace of a bird, pursued by Kenny, who whooped and hollered as he fired his dual pistols. Bullets splintered wood and shattered glass. Despite the years apart, Levi recognized his assailant, the very man who had raised him in childhood in the underground slums. This cruel twist of fate pushed Levi to his limits. During the fray, Eren and Historia were separated from Levi and captured by the enemy. Levi regrouped with his squad after narrowly escaping Kenny's kill shot by using a bartender's rifle in a last-second countermove. Mikasa and the others, though shaken by having to fight fellow humans instead of Titans, held their own, managing to kill or incapacitate several of Kenny's soldiers to survive. But with Eren and Historia taken, the situation grew dire. Levi's squad linked up with Hang Zoe, who had been conducting her own investigation into the government's crimes, including the murder of Pastor Nick, who had been tortured to death by the interior police for speaking to the scouts. Together they devised a plan to rescue their friends and expose the truth of the Reiss monarchy. Deep beneath the ground in a cavernous crystal chamber, Reiss, Historia's father and the true king in shadow, had taken Eren and Historia. In that dim, glowing cave, lined with pillar-like structures of crystal, Eren was chained and gagged. Rod recounted to Historia the secret history of their family, how the founding Titan had been passed down the race line for generations, maintaining the walls and altering humanity's memories. Historia's half-sister, Frida Reiss, had been the previous founding Titan, and had often visited Historia in secret, loving her dearly. But Frida and Rod's entire family, except Rod, were slaughtered 5 years ago by Grisha Jaeger, Eren's father, who stole the founding Titan that now resides within Eren. Historia reeled with the revelation that Eren's father was responsible for her sister's death and so much tragedy. Rod, with tears in his eyes, insisted that the only way to save humanity was for Historia to take on the power of the founding Titan herself by injecting herself with Titan serum and then devouring Eren to reclaim the founder. Above ground, Commander Erwin was facing his own day of judgment. Imprisoned and facing a sham trial, Erwin gambled everything on a final ploy with Commander Pixis's help. He had leaked word of a fabricated Titan attack on Wall Rose to test the royal government's response. When the news reached the council, rather than evacuating and protecting the populace, the Puppet King and his officials callously decided to block the gates and leave countless refugees to die, revealing their true colors. At that moment, military leaders led by Pixis and Nile Doc intervened, arresting the corrupt officials for treason against humanity. The inept Puppet King was deposed, and the path was cleared for Historia Reiss to be crowned. Erwin, freed from his shackles, took a breath of relief. His gamble had paid off bloodlessly. But the success of the coup hinged on rescuing Historia and Eren from Rod's clutches. Back in the cavern, a heart-rending scene unfolded. Historia, seeing her father sobbing and painting himself as a selfless savior, was handed a syringe of Titan serum. Torn between duty and compassion, Historia was moments away from sacrificing her life as Historia to become a mindless Titan for the greater good. But as she looked at Eren, who, though gagged, was clearly ready to accept this fate out of guilt, something within Historia snapped. She remembered Ymir's words urging her to live for herself, not for others' agendas. She recalled the false kindness of her upbringing and the cruelty inflicted on her mother. In a stunning turn, Historia rejected her father's script. She hurled the syringe to the ground, shattering it, and in that instant, she chose her own freedom and Eren's life over Rod's plan. Enraged and desperate, Rod licked the spilled serum off the floor himself. A flash of light engulfed him as he transformed into a massive Titan, a mindless, nightmarish thing of immense size that dwarfed any Titan seen before. At that very moment, Levi's squad launched their rescue operation, bursting into the cavern. They found Eren despairing and apologetic. He had heard everything, and believing himself a hindrance to humanity's salvation, he begged Historia to inject and eat him. But she had chosen another path. With Eren still bound, the scouts grappled with the sudden appearance of Rod's gigantic new Titan form. The cave began to collapse as the enormous Titan, too large and unstable, brought the ceiling down. In the chaos, Eren found a vial labeled armor, likely dropped from Rod's supplies, and in a bold move he smashed it against his hand and drank the fluid. Instantly Eren's Titan power reacted, allowing him to harden his Titan body with a crystalline shell. He transformed and created a great arch of hardened material over the retreating scouts, holding up the crumbling cavern long enough for them to escape to the surface. Far above, citizens in the Orvud district, near Wall Sena, saw an ominous sight at dawn. A colossal, flat-bodied Titan, crawling on its belly toward the Orvud gates. This abomination was Rod Reiss's Titan, now a grotesque giant over 120 meters tall, dragging itself as its body and face wore away against the ground. It was headed for the capital, drawn by the dense population there. The scouts, now reunited with Erwin and the military, rushed to intercept this slow-moving disaster before it could reach the city. Together they formulated a risky plan to stop Rod's Titan atop the walls of Orvud. Using gunpowder and kegs of explosives, they prepared a trap as Rod's enormous Titan reached the base of Wall Sena and began to rear up. Its horrifyingly large face came into view at the top of the wall, its maw gaping and burning hot air billowing out. With the government reformed and Historia Res officially crowned queen, a new era dawned within the walls. The scouts were vindicated, and now had the backing of the throne. Queen Historia immediately used her authority with compassion, establishing an orphan fund and tending to the weakest in society, even inviting orphans to pelt her with punches in a humorous echo of her gesture to Levi, as if to atone playfully for the crown she now wore. Through it all, she never lost the humble warmth that had made her beloved as Krista among her friends. On Erwin's signal, the scouts ignited the explosives, which they had packed onto carts and sent plunging into the Titan's opened mouth. A massive explosion blew apart the Titan's neck from within, sending chunks of burning flesh high into the sky. Historia, determined to face her fate head-on, used her ODM gear to dive straight toward the disintegrating Titan, slicing through a falling piece of its nape that contained the last remnant of Rod Reiss. In that decisive strike, Historia killed her own father, ending Rod's arc of tragedy and ambition. As the dust settled, giant pieces of Titan flesh rained down around Orvud, but thanks to Erwin's foresight, civilian casualties were minimal. In the aftermath, Historia was greeted by the soldiers and civilians below with awe. This once self-effacing girl now stood proudly, covered in Titan blood and guts, claiming her right as queen with a relieved smile. True to a promise she'd made to herself and her comrades, her first act after being crowned was to find Captain Levi in the celebratory crowd and deliver a surprise punch to his arm. A light-hearted thank you for trusting her to make her own choices, and a symbol of her new confidence. Levi, initially shocked, simply nodded with a rare, subtle grin. In a quiet moment amid the celebration, Levi found an old, fatally wounded acquaintance propped against some rubble. Kenny Ackerman. Kenny had been caught in the blast of Rod's transformation, his body burned and broken. In their final moments together, Kenny and Levi spoke not as enemies but as family, for Kenny was in fact Levi's uncle, the brother of Levi's late mother Kuchel. Kenny, with a mix of regret and affection, recounted how he had found Levi's mother's lifeless body years ago and decided to raise Levi for a time, teaching him to survive in a merciless world. He handed Levi a parting gift, a syringe of Titan serum he had stolen from Rod, knowing it might someday be useful to Levi. Before passing, Kenny also revealed a secret of their bloodline, the Ackerman clan, to which Kenny, Levi, and Mikasa belonged, were once the royal guard and had mysteriously inherited the ability to resist the founding Titan's memory erasure and manifest extraordinary strength when protecting someone they cherish. This revelation connected pieces of Levi's and Mikasa's pasts, explaining the awakened power Mikasa had felt when Eren saved her as a child, and Levi's own almost superhuman instincts. Kenny died with a final chuckle, having finally done something kind for his nephew after a lifetime of blood. As Levi stepped back into the light of day, the tumult of revolution gave way to hope. The people, learning that their king had lied to them for a century, embraced Historia as a queen who fought alongside soldiers and cared for the common folk. Under the new queen's authority, the basement key that Eren carried, the symbol of secrets left by his father, finally could be put to use. The path was clear for the scouts to launch a mission to retake Wall Maria and reach the Jaeger family basement in Shiganshina. The night before the expedition, around a campfire, the veteran scouts and new recruits shared a brief respite, a mixture of solemn determination and flickering optimism. For the first time in years, the dream of freedom beyond the walls didn't seem so far out of reach. Though many trials awaited, humanity within the walls had struck a blow for the truth, and now they prepared to face whatever awaited them in the lands they once called home. With Queen Historia's support, the Scout Regiment turned to their long-awaited mission: retake Wall Maria and uncover the secrets in Eren's basement at Shiganshina. This operation would be the Scouts' most perilous yet, pitting them against the Titans on territory that had been lost 5 years before. Among the ranks, faces both old and new steeled themselves. Eren, Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Connie, Sasha, Hange, Levi, and other brave recruits who volunteered after the coup. Erwin Smith, though missing an arm, led them, his eyes alight with the possibility of answers at last. Before departing, the soldiers raised their hands in salute, hearts in their throats, as the people of the walls cheered them on as heroes for the first time. Under the silvery light of a full moon, they rode out, determined to restore hope to humanity. The Scouts found themselves surrounded. Erwin quickly split his forces. Eren, along with Levi's squad, would engage Reiner inside the walls and defend Eren at all costs. Meanwhile, Erwin and the rest would face the Beast Titan outside. Thunder spears, newly developed explosive harpoons, proved to be the key against Reiner's near-invincible armored hide. In a furious confrontation through the streets of Shiganshina, Eren and the others managed to blind the armored Titan and blow open his armor, leaving Reiner critically wounded. But as victory over Reiner seemed within reach, a new threat materialized high above Shiganshina. Descending from the clouds, Bertholdt Hoover in a barrel was hurled by the Beast Titan. In midair, Bertholdt transformed into the Colossal Titan, unleashing a colossal explosion that set much of Shiganshina ablaze and knocked many scouts unconscious. At dawn, the scouts arrived at the ruined Shiganshina district, using Eren's new hardening ability, gained from the armor serum. They swiftly sealed the gaping hole in Wall Maria's outer gate. It was a triumphant moment. Humanity had taken back a wall. But the celebration was short-lived. As Eren and the others moved to plug the inner gate, they realized they had ridden into a trap. From within the very walls, Reiner Braun, the armored Titan, thought lost, burst out like a devil from a Trojan horse. At the same time, outside the walls, a platoon of Marley's Titans appeared, led by the dreaded Beast Titan. The Beast Titan, now known to be the mysterious warrior Zeke Yeager, Grisha's first son, and thus Eren's half-brother, took position on a rise, launching a barrage of pulverized boulders into Shiganshina, cutting off the scouts' escape and pulverizing many of their horses. In the inferno and chaos that followed, the Colossal Titan began laying waste to the district, burning everything in its path. Eren, initially stunned by the blast, had to recover and find a way to fight this seemingly unstoppable giant. On the other front, outside the walls, the Beast Titan rained stone volleys with terrifying precision, decimating the scout regiment. Soldier after soldier fell as rocks tore through flesh and bone. Faced with annihilation, Commander Erwin confronted the bleak reality. To stop the Beast Titan and give Levi a chance to strike it down, he would have to send his remaining soldiers on a suicidal charge straight into the barrage. In one of the most heart-wrenching speeches ever given on the battlefield, Erwin appealed to the fear and resolve in his soldiers. Acknowledging the inevitability of their deaths, he urged them to make it meaningful by serving as the distraction Levi needed. With tears and fierce resolve in their eyes, Erwin and the young recruits cried out their defiance. Erwin led the charge, charging headlong on horseback, his survivors following and brandishing flares, their voices rising in a final battle cry. Rocks rained down, and one by one the flames of those brave youths were snuffed out. Erwin himself was struck in the gut and fell, a smile of longing and sorrow on his face, as he drifted between life and death, his dreams of reaching that basement slipping away. But Erwin's gamble worked. Amid the carnage, Captain Levi used the smoke and chaos to his advantage. With unmatched speed and fury, he attacked the Beast Titan, cutting down the monster that had slaughtered his comrades. In a flurry of slashes, Levi carved up Zeke's Beast Titan, slicing tendons and gouging out eyes in a whirlwind of vengeance. In moments, the Beast Titan was left stumbling and defeated, its hairy body falling limp. Levi hauled the real Zeke from the nape, wounded and at his mercy. Rage tempted Levi to kill Zeke slowly for all the pain he'd caused. Yet Levi hesitated, recalling a syringe of Titan serum he carried for a crucial moment. Perhaps he considered using it to have a dying comrade consume Zeke and inherit the Beast Titan's power. In that split second of deliberation, the Cart Titan, a swift quadrupedal Titan that served as support for Zeke, lunged out of the smoke, snatching Zeke and fleeing to safety. Levi's eyes burned with frustration. The Beast Titan had escaped, but the threat to the rear was neutralized for now. Within Shiganshina's walls, the battle had reached a fever pitch. Armin, ever the strategist, devised a risky plan to bring down Bertholdt's colossal Titan. The heat and steam rolling off the colossal Titan's body made it impossible to get close. It could cook a human alive. So Armin chose to sacrifice himself as a distraction, directing Eren to do the unexpected. Armin confronted the colossal Titan head-on, grappling onto the monster's teeth with his ODM gear. Bertholdt unleashed a torrent of fire, and Armin's body began to blacken under the immense heat, but he held on tenaciously, refusing to let go, determined to buy Eren just a few precious seconds. Seeing Armin seemingly trapped, Bertholdt focused all his attention forward, unaware that Eren had quietly hardened his Titan and slipped out of his Titan form down below. While Bertholdt was distracted, Eren circled behind, scaled the now thinner colossal Titan from the rear, and in a pivotal moment, sliced Bertholdt out from the nape with a single slash of his blade. The few scouts left gathered in the aftermath. Mikasa found Eren desperately trying to lift Armin's smoldering body. Hang, wounded but alive, dragged herself over to help. Connie and Sasha, battered and exhausted, looked around for any other survivors. To their astonishment, they found one more, Commander Erwin, still clinging to life, despite his grievous wound, breathing faintly among a pile of fallen recruits. Now came an agonizing dilemma. Levi held the single syringe of Titan serum, their one chance to save a life, by turning a dying ally into a Titan who could then eat one of the defeated shifters and gain their power. Two beloved comrades lay at death's door. Erwin, the fearless commander who had led them to this point, and Armin, the brilliant strategist whose dreams of the ocean still glimmered in his fading eyes. The colossal foe fell. Bertholdt, unconscious, tumbled to the ground as steam billowed, but victory came at a terrible price. Armin's small charred body fell to the rooftop below, barely alive and burned beyond recognition. At nearly the same time, Mikasa and the others had disabled Reiner's armored Titan using the last of their thunder spears. Reiner was extracted from his Titan, grievously injured and unconscious. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent, save for crackling fires and the groans of the wounded. It appeared the scouts had won. The colossal Titan was down, the armored Titan captured, and the Beast Titan had fled. But the cost was immense. Inside the basement, a desk and bookcase covered in dust awaited them. After some searching, Mikasa discovered a hidden drawer that could be opened with the key. Inside, they found 3 well-preserved journals and an unfamiliar object, a family portrait photograph of Grisha Jaeger alongside a fair-haired woman and a young boy. The scouts marveled, for they had never seen a photograph before. In that moment, they understood. Grisha came from outside the walls, from a world far beyond their own. A desperate argument broke out amidst the smoke and rubble. Eren and Mikasa pleaded through tears for Armin to be chosen. Armin, who had shown his worth by defeating the colossal titan at the cost of his own life. Flock, a surviving recruit who had carried Erwin from the front, argued that Erwin's leadership was irreplaceable, that he was the hero humanity needed. Levi, torn by loyalty to Erwin and love for his recruits, had to make the final choice. As voices rose and tempers flared, Levi remembered Erwin's own words and the peaceful expression on Erwin's face as he lay unconscious, the commander finally free from his endless sacrifices and the burden of his dream. Gently, Levi decided to let Erwin rest. He administered the Titan serum to Armin, who gasped as life surged back into him, and his body convulsed, transforming into a mindless titan of staggering size. Acting on Levi's grim instruction, the newly born titan Armin seized the unconscious Bertholdt and devoured him, taking the power of the colossal titan for himself. On a nearby rooftop, Erwin Smith exhaled one last time, a faint smile on his lips as though he were greeting an old friend in his dreams, his long quest finally over. Levi knelt beside his fallen friend in quiet farewell, as the others looked on in somber silence. When the sun rose higher that day, it shone upon a scene both triumphant and tragic. From the hundreds who had set out that morning, only 9 souls survived. Among them Armin awoke, newly restored to human form, weak and confused, learning with heartbreak that he had been chosen to live, while his commander perished. The victory was bittersweet. Yet they had fulfilled the primary goal. Wall Maria was reclaimed. Mikasa gently collected the old key that Eren had kept for years, and together with Levi, Hange, Eren and Armin, the remaining leaders, they walked the familiar streets of Shiganshina toward Eren's family basement. It stood intact beneath the rubble of Eren's childhood home, a lone symbol amid so much loss. With trembling hands, Eren unlocked the door. In a land across the vast ocean stood a nation called Marley. There, behind segregated walls of a city called Liberio, lived hundreds of thousands of our people, Eldians, hated and persecuted, forced to wear armbands marking them as devils. By candlelight, back in the safety of Wall Rose, the survivors gathered and carefully read Grishasip's journals. As the words unfolded, so did a truth that shattered their understanding of the world. Grisha had been born in Marley in the year 806. As a child, he learned the cruelty of that world when his little sister was killed by Marleyan guards simply for wandering somewhere she shouldn't have. The incident ignited a fire in Grisha's heart. As a young man, he joined the Eldian Restorationists, a secret group that sought to overthrow Marley's rule and restore Eldian freedom. There he met a woman named Ymir Fritz, a descendant of the royal bloodline left on the mainland. They married and had a son, Zeke. Each scout read these accounts in stunned silence. Tears fell as they learned of the atrocities their people had both suffered and committed. The truth of the world was as awe-inspiring as it was terrible. Humanity had not perished outside the walls. In fact, an entire world thrived beyond, one that hated and feared the people of Paradis Island. The walls were not a refuge from a Titan-ravaged wasteland, but a prison built by King Fritz to protect his people at the cost of their freedom and truth. Eren finally understood the ocean that Armin had always spoken of, not as a symbol of wonder, but as a dividing line between them and their true enemies. Grisha did as he was told. He lived in the walls, started a new family, marrying Carla, and raising Eren. When the day of Wall Maria's fall came in 845, Grisha begged the Reiss family to use the founding Titan to save the people. But bound by an ancient vow renouncing war, Frida Reiss and her father Rod refused. In despair and determination, Grisha fought them. He became the attack Titan and battled Frida's founding Titan, winning and devouring her to take the founder's power. He slaughtered all of Rod's family present, save Rod, who escaped. That evening, finding Eren amidst the chaos, Grisha gave his own Titan power the attack and the founding Titans, to Eren, injecting his son with Titan serum and allowing himself to be eaten by him. In his final words on the page, Grisha apologized and entrusted Eren with the task to save Eldia and find freedom. But Marley had a stratagem to keep Eldians oppressed. They created warrior candidates, Eldian children trained to inherit the Titans and fight for Marley. Zeke was one such child. Under pressure and fearful indoctrination, Zeke betrayed his own parents to Marley's secret police. The restorationists were caught and banished to Paradis Island, turned into mindless Titans as punishment. Grisha watched as his comrades, and Dina, were injected and thrown off a high wall, one by one becoming Titans to wander Paradis eternally. Just before Grisha's turn, fate intervened. A double agent among Marley's ranks, Eren Kruger, revealed himself as the attack Titan and saved Grisha. Kruger passed on his Titan power to Grisha, tasking him with a mission: go beyond the walls, find the royal family, and take the founding Titan to end this cycle of hatred. This earth-shaking revelation was shared with the public by Queen Historia. Though fear and anxiety rippled through the populace, knowledge also brought a strange relief. The enemy had a name and a face now. Marley. And the Titans, these monsters who had haunted their lives, were revealed to be people, often Eldians, twisted by cruelty. With this truth, those lost in Titan form, like Connie's family and so many others, gained a measure of dignity and memory. In the weeks that followed, the surviving scouts were honored in a ceremony. Dressed in their formal uniforms, they stood before the people not as outcasts, but as saviors. Historia awarded each a medal. When it was Eren's turn, he took Historia's hand and kissed it, and at that moment, his mind was flooded by a sudden torrent of memories, not his own. Memories of Grisha's encounter with the Reiss family, and visions of an uncertain future, glimpses bestowed by the founding Titan's power, reacting to Historia's royal blood. Eren's eyes widened, but he kept these revelations to himself, not wanting to burden his friends yet with what he saw on the horizon. Not long after, the scout regiment embarked on one more journey, this time unopposed, beyond Wall Maria to finally see the eastern sea that none within the walls had seen before. Eren, Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Connie, Sasha, Hange, and Levi rode through now empty Titan territory. Past the very spot where so many had given their lives, they reached the edge of Paradis Island and stepped onto a beach of sand. For a moment, pure wonder filled their hearts. The ocean stretched out before them, exactly as Armin had described from his books, endless and glittering under the sun. The salty breeze mixed with the warmth of tears on Armin's face as he realized a childhood dream. The friends splashed in the waves, incredulous at the vast waters, yet Eren stood apart, lifting a hand toward the horizon. He recalled the hate across the sea, the images of Marley's warriors and armies that he saw in Grisha's memories. With solemn resolve, he said, "On the other side of the ocean is freedom. That's what I always believed. But I was wrong. On the other side of the ocean, there are enemies. If we kill them, will we finally be free?" His friends heard the sadness in his voice. On that peaceful shore, they understood that their fight was far from over. Still, in that moment, they allowed themselves a quiet hope. Together they gazed over the waves toward the invisible lands beyond, feeling both the fear of the unknown and the faint hope that one day somehow peace might greet them from across that distant shore. For a few fleeting years, Paradis Island enjoyed a tense peace, rapidly militarizing under Queen Historia's reign to prepare for the inevitable foreign attack. Beyond the ocean, the world reeled from the revelation of the rumblings' reality and the existence of Paradis. It was only a matter of time before Marley and other nations struck. Indeed, by the year 854, the warriors of Marley had recovered and war loomed on the horizon once more. Across the sea in Marley, a new generation of Eldian warrior candidates had been training, including a bold young girl named Gabi Braun, Reiner's cousin, and a kind-hearted boy named Falco Reiss. Marley was embroiled in a war against the Mideast Allied forces. In a fierce battle at Fort Slava, these young warriors and the titans they supported, including Zeke's Beast Titan, Reiner's Armored Titan, Pike's Cart Titan, and the Jaw Titan, held by a warrior named Porco Galliard, secured a victory for Marley. But victory came with a realization. The era of titans as supreme weapons was waning. The enemy's new technology, like anti-titan artillery, could nearly kill even the armored titan. Marley's generals knew that to maintain power, they had to neutralize Paradis Island and obtain the founding titan soon. Back in Liberio, the Eldian internment zone in Marley, Reiner returned home, exhausted and haunted by memories. He spent time with his mother and tried to dissuade his young cousin Gaby from idolizing war. Meanwhile, Marley's high command devised a plan to rally global support for an attack on Paradis by revealing the truth about King Fritz's threat, the need to preemptively strike. This plan culminated in a grand stage, a festival in Liberio, inviting foreign dignitaries. The keynote was a play by Marley's own Willie Tabor, holder of the Warhammer Titan, who secretly conspired to unify the world against Paradis. Unbeknownst to the Marleyans, Eren Yeager had already infiltrated Liberio. Now older, hardened, and carrying the weight of what he'd learned, Eren disguised himself as an injured Marleyan soldier. He even befriended Falco, using the boy's innocence to deliver letters to his allies across the sea. On the night of Willie Tabor's address, dignitaries and warrior families gathered in an outdoor theater. From the basement of a nearby building, Eren revealed himself to a shocked Reiner and Falco. In a tense, emotional exchange, Eren calmly told Reiner that he understood him now more than ever, that they were the same, trapped by the world's expectations and driven to horrendous acts. With tears in his eyes, Reiner begged Eren to kill him and end his guilt. Eren simply said he couldn't blame Reiner because the world had forced both their hands. Above, Willie Tabor took the stage and in a dramatic speech revealed to the world the true history of Titans, King Fritz's pacifism, and declared war on Paradis on behalf of humanity. That declaration was the spark. Eren shook Reiner's hand in a somber gesture and then transformed into the attack titan right beneath the stage. In a single crushing motion, he tore Willie Tabor apart in front of the crowd, hurling the mangled body like a rag doll. Panic erupted. Eren, in a battle frenzy, proceeded to slaughter Marleyan soldiers and dignitaries alike, determined to eliminate the heads of the hostile nations in one fell swoop. The ground bellowed as Eren clashed next with the Warhammer Titan, which revealed itself in the form of Willie's sister. The Warhammer Titan wielded creative powers of hardening, forming spikes and a massive hammer to impale and batter Eren. Their duel rocked the city. Meanwhile, soldiers and bystanders ran in terror. Among them were Gaby and Falco, who struggled to comprehend why this horror was unfolding. Amid the chaos, the long-prepared scout regiment from Paradis launched their surprise assault to support Eren. Now equipped with new Thunder Spear launchers and black maneuver gear designed for combat against humans and titans alike, familiar figures emerged in the night. Mikasa, now a fierce young woman, struck the Warhammer with a barrage of Thunder Spears to assist Eren. Armin, left offshore, transformed into the colossal titan and detonated the Marleyan navy in a devastating explosion, mirroring Bertholdt's destruction years ago and flattening a portion of the city. Jean, Connie, and Sasha fought Marleyan soldiers and engaged Pike's Cart Titan and Porco's Jaw Titan on the streets. Amid the battle, Sasha's keen shot took down enemy guards, while Jean coordinated attacks to keep the Cart Titan at bay. Eren, with Mikasa's help, managed to overpower the Warhammer Titan's user by exploiting a weakness. The Warhammer's user hid underground, connected via a cable of flesh. Eren ripped the crystalline shell encasing Willie's sister out of the ground, yet her hardening was as tough as Annie's. Eren couldn't crack it. At that moment, Porco's jaw titan leapt at Eren in a frenzy. Eren fought him and realized the jaw titan's teeth might serve as the tool to break the Warhammer's crystal. In a brutal move, he pinned the jaw titan and forced its jaws to bite down on the crystal, shattering it. The Warhammer's host was crushed, and her titan power consumed by Eren, adding yet another power to his arsenal. The battle was turning in Paradis's favor, but at great cost to Marley. The Beast Titan appeared on the scene as well, only to be ambushed and swiftly cut down by Levi yet again, a reprise of their previous encounter. Zeke had, however, staged his defeat. In truth, he had already conspired with Eren in secret, planning this as part of a larger gambit. The Cart Titan, with its machine gun turret, was felled by multiple thunder spear strikes, its crew wiped out, and Piek gravely wounded. In those intense moments, victory for the scouts was at hand. At the climax of the battle, as the scouts made their retreat to a stolen airship, a heartbreaking loss occurred. Gabby, consumed by rage at the devastation and the death of her comrades, took up a fallen soldier's rifle. In a desperate, vengeful act, she shot into the departing airship and struck Sasha Blouse in the chest. Sasha, beloved friend and source of levity, collapsed bleeding in Connie's arms. The crew quickly subdued Gabby and Falco, who had followed her onto the airship, but the damage was done. As their comrades frantically tried to save her, Sasha, with her last breaths, only wistfully murmured about wanting to eat at home again. The laughter and warmth she had brought to the scouts ended that night, sending them all into deep grief. Eren, upon hearing of Sasha's death, clutched his head and let out a rare pained laugh, a release of anguish and frustration at the cycles of loss his choices caused. As tensions rose, Eren secretly met with Zeke and Yelena to discuss their mutual plan involving the founding Titan and Zeke's royal blood. Zeke had proposed a grim solution to end the cycle of hatred: euthanize the Eldian race by using the founder to render all Eldians incapable of having children, a plan to peacefully let the subjects of Ymir die out in a century, ending Titans forever. Eren's true feelings about this plan remained unclear to those around him. Under house arrest by Paradis's military, who didn't fully trust Zeke or Eren, Eren decided to take matters into his own hands. Tension snapped when news came that the volunteers' wine, secretly laced with Zeke's spinal fluid, had been served to many high-ranking officers, a covert plan by Zeke to disable the Paradis military if needed. In a swift move, Eren escaped custody. Along with Flock and other fervent new recruits, he staged a coup, calling themselves the Jaegerists. They demanded that the Paradis government cooperate with Eren's plan to defend the island by any means necessary. Premier Zackley was assassinated by a bomb planted by dissenters within his ranks, and the military chain of command buckled. In the chaos, Eren confronted Armin and Mikasa in a heated private meeting. With cold, piercing eyes, he told them that he now saw clearly. He claimed he hated Mikasa, stating that her Ackerman blood forced her to protect him without true free will, a statement that shattered her heart. He belittled Armin's pacifism, accusing him of being swayed by Bertholdt's memories due to the colossal titan within. Mikasa and Armin were left in tears and fury as Eren stormed out, leaving his oldest friends crushed and confused. They could not know that Eren delivered those cutting words only to distance them from his impending path. The airship returned to Paradis with prisoners Gabby and Falco in tow. It was then revealed to the core scouts that Zeke Yeager had orchestrated his defeat and was now secretly allied with Paradis, or at least aligned with Eren's plans. Along with Zeke came his followers, the anti-Marleyan volunteers, like the clever Yelena and compassionate Nyankopon, who had earlier helped introduce Marleyan technology to Paradis. Yet trust within the ranks was uneasy. Eren's actions in Liberio, acting unilaterally and endangering his friends, seeded conflict with Armin and Mikasa. In the months after the attack, Paradis was effectively at war with Marley and the world, Eren grew distant and brooding, convinced that only he could protect the island by going on the offensive. His friends barely recognized the boy who once cried for a single lost life, now hardened to the cost of many. Zeke, who had been under house arrest, guarded by Levi in the forest, had earlier enacted his spinal fluid trap. When Levi let his guard down momentarily, Zeke let out a piercing scream that caused all those who had unknowingly ingested his spinal fluid, including Levi's close comrades in the forest, to suddenly transform into titans under his command. The ambush devastated Levi, but he survived and later confronted Zeke once more, resulting in Zeke's near-fatal self-detonation with a thunder spear. Gravely injured, Zeke was rescued by the strange regenerative power of a small ancient titan found in the forest, a manifestation of the source of all living matter, and eventually staggered toward Shiganshina. As Marley's attack raged, Zeke appeared on the battlefield outside Shiganshina and began raining stones on Marley's troops in a reversed echo of his assault on the scouts earlier. Now it was Eren and Zeke versus Reiner, Porco and Marley's forces. Marley did not sit idle. Soon Marley and forces launched a surprise attack on Paradis, led by Magath, Reiner, Piek, and Porco, who were driven by urgency after Eren's slaughter in Liberio. In the city of Shiganshina, where this story first began, the final act was set into motion. Eren found himself besieged on home turf. Reiner's armored titan and Porco's jaw titan tore into Eren's attack titan as a new conflict erupted atop the very walls he once vowed to defend. Despite being outnumbered, Eren fought with ferocity, determined to reach his half-brother Zeke, who was coming to meet him so that together they could unlock the founding titan's power. The Marleyan airships buzzed overhead, raining warriors onto the island. Among them, Gabi and Falco sought to rescue Falco's brother Colt and find a resolution without further needless bloodshed. During the intense fighting, Falco, having accidentally ingested some of Zeke's spinal fluid earlier via tainted wine, began to convulse when he heard Zeke scream. To save the boy from a forced transformation, Colt Reiss, Falco's older brother, clung to him in a futile plea to Zeke, only to be engulfed in flames as Falco was forced into a mindless titan form. The newly transformed titan Falco rampaged, eventually turning on Reiner. Porco, battered and realizing he was mortally wounded by prior encounters, including Mikasa's fierce attacks, made a noble sacrifice. He allowed Falco's titan to devour him, granting Falco the power of the Jaw Titan, and returning Falco to human form, unconscious and safe from the pure Titan curse. Eren, desperate to reach Zeke, abandoned his Titan form and sprinted toward his brother on foot. In a heart-stopping moment, Gabi Braun, ever the marksman, took aim with an anti-Titan rifle. With a thunderous crack, she shot Eren's head clean off his shoulders. Time itself seemed to stop as Eren's head sailed through the air. But before life left Eren's eyes, Zeke caught Eren's head with his outstretched hand. In that instant, the conditions were met. Contact between Eren, who held the founder, and Zeke of royal blood. The world went white as both brothers were drawn into the mysterious paths, the transcendental realm that connects all subjects of Ymir, overseen by the founder Ymir herself. Within the eerie calm of the paths, Eren awakened to find Zeke chained and the ghostly figure of Ymir Fritz, the founder, in the distance. Zeke, having spent what felt like eons in this timeless realm, confronted Eren, initially believing Eren was under some influence. But Eren revealed his true intent. He never planned to go along with Zeke's euthanasia. In fact, Eren's purpose was far more drastic. Zeke commanded Ymir to carry out the euthanasia plan. But Ymir hesitated. For the first time in 2,000 years, someone defied the royal will. Zeke was stunned to see Eren break free of his spectral chains and race toward Ymir. Eren wrapped the ancient, trembling girl in a protective embrace and pleaded for her freedom, telling her she was neither slave nor god, but a person who deserved her own choice. He understood her centuries of pain and longing. At Eren's words, the founder Ymir's blank eyes lit with emotion. The spark of free will, long extinguished, blazed once more. Back in the physical world, the sky darkened over paradis as a colossal earthquake emanated from deep within Shiganshina. The very walls, symbols of humanity's cage and protection, began to crumble. From within them, the colossal titans encased for a century stirred and broke free. Wall Maria, Wall Rose, Wall Sina, all disintegrated sequentially as countless enormous titans awoke from their slumber in the walls. This was the rumbling, the doomsday scenario King Fritz once only bluffed about, but now Eren had made it real. As people watched in awe and terror, these colossal titans, in rows upon rows, began marching, their footsteps shaking the earth. High above, an astonishing transformation took shape. Eren's head, still in Zeke's hand moments before, regenerated and connected to a massive new titan body emanating from the source of all living matter, the shining centipede-like spine. Eren became the founding titan, a form unprecedented, an enormous skeletal monstrosity, taller than the walls themselves, with a spine-like structure extending far into the distance. From this form, Eren's voice rang out in the minds of every subject of Ymir across the world. He announced that he would annihilate all life beyond Paradis Island, determined to finally end the cycle of hatred by eliminating the rest of the world that sought to destroy his home. Panic and confusion seized the Eldians both on Paradis and in Marley as they collectively heard Eren's solemn declaration. As the rumbling commenced, unimaginable devastation unfolded. The army of wall titans marched out to sea, causing massive tsunamis as they crossed the ocean floor, then stepping onto foreign shores and flattening cities and armies underfoot. In a matter of days, entire nations burned and crumbled. The world's militaries, with all their firepower, proved almost helpless before this onslaught. Amid this global cataclysm, a small band of former enemies united to stop Eren and save what remained of humanity. Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Connie, and the surviving scouts found common cause with Reiner, Annie, Piek, and even Marleyan soldiers like General Magath and young Gabi and Falco. Annie freed from her crystal when Eren's founding power dissolved all Titan hardening, finally reunited tearfully with her father, who was across the sea. Though they were physically apart, their destinies were now tied to stopping the rumbling. The group realized that Eren's founding Titan might be vulnerable if they could reach him. They enlisted the Azuma Bito engineers, allies from Hizuru, to prepare a flying boat, a modified seaplane, to overtake the rumbling. But first, they needed to reach the port, which was occupied by Flock and the Jaegerists, who aimed to stop any opposition to Eren's plan. In a tense and tragic confrontation at Odiha port, the Alliance battled their former comrades. Casualties mounted as friend fought friend. Hange and Magath were instrumental in securing the boat's launch. Magath sacrificed himself alongside Keith Shadis, the former instructor, by blowing up a Marleyan cruiser to ensure no pursuit, and Hang Zoe made a heroic last stand against the advancing wall titans. Knowing someone had to delay the monsters to buy time for the plane's departure, Hange entrusted Armin as the new 14th commander and said a fond goodbye. With fearless resolve, Hange engaged the leading colossal titans, slashing at their ankles to topple them, ultimately being consumed by the fires of steam, but not before the Alliance safely took off into the sky. As she perished, Hange saw a vision of her fallen comrades waiting warmly to greet her, Erwin, Mike, Jelgar and others, a fitting soldier's farewell. Aboard the flying boat, the Alliance flew over the endless swarms of colossal titans making landfall on Marley. The horror of the rumbling's effects became apparent as they saw towns in flames and countless lives extinguished. Mikasa steeled her heart, focusing only on saving Eren, or if necessary, stopping him by lethal force. Armin struggled with the weight of potentially killing his best friend to save humanity. Reiner grappled with guilt and determination to atone. In a brief respite, Annie confessed to Armin the fear she held, and her desire to just spend peaceful days with him, a fragile hope of a life beyond war. Armin, realizing conventional attacks were failing, transformed into the colossal titan to challenge Eren's founding titan head-on. The blast blew apart a chunk of Eren's massive form, but not enough to stop it. In the Psychic Paths realm, Armin confronted Zeke, whom Eren had freed from his prison of sand when the rumbling began. In that timeless space, Zeke, at last understanding the value of life's little joys from a baseball to a blade of grass, made the choice to help the Alliance. Back in the physical world, Levi found Zeke's human body protruding from the spine of Eren's titan. With a swift slice of his blade, fulfilling his long-held promise, Levi beheaded Zeke. That moment severed the connection controlling the wall titans. The rumbling came to a halt as the colossal titans ceased their march, almost as if the world itself took a breath. The final confrontation occurred at Fort Salta, a Marleyan airbase, where the remnants of the world's forces made a futile last stand, and where Eldian families, including Annie's father and Reiner's mother, had fled. Eren's founding titan, a gargantuan spine-like creature carrying his massive head, arrived with the thundering legions. The Alliance dropped in via ODM gear from the plane. Each member resolved to do what had to be done. They fought desperately against a legion of Warhammer Titan constructs that Eren created to defend himself, as well as the infinite regeneration of the bizarre centipede-like source of all living matter that anchored Eren's Titan. The air was thick with ash and despair, but Eren's founding Titan remained active, and from it issued a colossal centipede, the core of the source power, which attempted to rejoin with Eren's head to restart the calamity. Reiner heroically tackled the centipede in his armored Titan form, holding it back with all his might. Meanwhile, Eren, in a shocking turn, re-emerged from the founding Titan in a regenerated new form of his attack Titan, seemingly unwilling to give up until the very end. Armin's colossal Titan grappled with Eren's new form in a titanic duel, each pummeling the other with earth-shaking blows. As the battle reached its climax, Mikasa saw one final chance. The constant fighting had exposed an entrance into the founding Titan's gigantic mouth, where Eren's human body was visible, connected by the spine to his Titan. Determination flooded her. In a burst of speed, and with Levi clearing her path by launching a thunder spear to open the way, Mikasa shot through the air straight into the gaping maw. Time seemed to slow as Mikasa threaded between the Titan's giant teeth. Within the cavernous mouth, she found Eren, his real body attached at the spine. In a moment both heartbreaking and merciful, Mikasa said a silent goodbye to the boy who gave her a family and a purpose. With tears mixing with resolve, she swung her blade and severed Eren's head from his body. In that instant, the founder Ymir, watching silently nearby, smiled, as if relieved at long last. Eren's death sent a shockwave through the paths. The shining centipede shrieked and died, and every remaining wall titan fell to the ground. More wondrously, the curse of Ymir was lifted. All titan shifters felt their powers vanish, and all pure titans transformed back into human form. Across the battlefield, those who had been turned, like Jean, Connie, Gabby, and even Annie's father and others, returned to their senses, naked and alive, freed from a nightmare. The 2,000-year span of the Titans had finally come to an end. The immediate aftermath was bittersweet. The survivors of Paradis and Marley stood together, having saved each other and what was left of the world. But Marleyan soldiers still eyed the Eldians warily, unsure what new horror might come. Armin, now freed of the colossal Titan's burden, stepped forward as a diplomat. He convinced Marley's commander that with the Titan power gone, there was no reason for further bloodshed, that they all stood only as people now, equally weak and equally deserving of life. peace, however fragile, dawned as they lowered their weapons and acknowledged their shared humanity. In the weeks and months that followed, survivors from Marley and Paradis worked together to help the countless refugees and rebuild what they could. The news spread. The Titans were gone. Around the world, shocked and relieved, people emerged from the wreckage to a strange new reality, one without the terror of Titans for the first time in ages. On Paradis, Queen Historia welcomed the returning scouts, tears of relief in her eyes, with her infant child in arms, symbolizing a new generation, unshackled by the curse. A global summit was proposed, and the former warriors, Reiner, Annie, and Peak, along with Armin, Jean, and Connie, agreed to act as ambassadors of peace between the island and the outside nations. In the eerie quiet after the rumbling, the alliance members gathered. Mikasa cradled Eren's severed head, sorrow etched on her face, but a gentle peace in her eyes, for she knew he was free. Armin, restored to human form, approached the lifeless head of his dearest friend. In the silence of that ruined plain, Armin thanked Eren for being a devil for their sake, and promised that his sacrifice would not be in vain. As if in answer, a small bird flew overhead, reminiscent of a freedom Eren always sought. Mikasa, however, had fulfilled her personal mission, and her heart was heavy with grief. She chose a quiet life away from politics and conflict. She brought Eren's remains back to Paradis and buried him under the old tree on the hill in Shiganshina, where he used to nap as a boy. It was a serene spot overlooking the sea of grass, a place connected to childhood dreams. Mikasa visited that spot often, speaking to Eren about the events he would never get to see, how Armin was negotiating peace, how the world was cautiously healing, how Gabi and Falco were adjusting to life beyond war. Levi, now physically broken and wheelchair-bound, spent his days in the company of Gabi, Falco, and Onyankopon, quietly reflecting on his promise kept, and all his comrades watching him from the other side. Reiner returned to his mother, who embraced him tearfully, thankful that her son survived, and that the dark legacy of the warriors had ended with him. Annie and Armin grew closer, dreaming of simple happiness, perhaps a visit to see the new ocean sunrise together, not as enemies or soldiers, but as two people who understood each other's sorrows. As years passed, Paradis Island cautiously opened its borders. The fear of Marley and retaliation lingered among some Ygrists, and indeed the wider world, still bearing scars of the rumbling, watched Paradis with distrust. But with time, dialogues began, and the fear of Titans faded into history. The island modernized, its people determined to live free. Queen Historia's leadership balanced strength and mercy, advocating for her people's safety while extending a hand in peace. The young child she bore grew up in a world without Titans, as did all the children after that. Under the shade of the great tree, Mikasa lived out her days in a cottage not far from Eren's grave. She would sometimes see a curious bird perch nearby, one with a familiar green scarf-like ribbon trailing from it. Mikasa would smile softly, feeling as if Eren's spirit still watched over her. In those moments, she spoke to him, assuring him that their friends were okay, that they were building the future he had given them. "Thank you for wrapping this scarf around me," she would whisper, recalling the boy who gifted her warmth and belonging on a cruel winter day so long ago. The bird would tug gently at Mikasa's scarf, just as Eren used to do to remind her he was there, before flying off into the vast open sky. The night after the world's turmoil settled, a calm fell over the island. The moon shone silvery on the ruins of Wall Maria, and upon the new life sprouting in fields once trampled by Titans. In a small cemetery under a flourishing tree, a lone figure in a black cloak sat by a simple gravestone marked with the name Eren Jaeger. It was Mikasa. A soft breeze lifted the edges of her red scarf as she spoke in a hushed tone, recounting her day to her dearest friend, now gone. And so, the legend of the Titans passed into history. From Ymir's endless servitude to Eren's tragic struggle, the cycle was finally broken. The people of Paradis and the people of the world now faced the challenge of peace, a peace dearly bought by the sacrifice of countless brave souls. The scars of the past would not fade easily, but neither would the memories of comradeship and love that had guided them through the long night of fear. As Mikasa and the others looked toward the horizon, they carried the weight of the fallen in their hearts, and the hope that one day, the dream of freedom, true freedom, without hatred or walls, would become more than just a dream. In the lullaby of waves on Paradis's shores and the quiet rustle of leaves in the great tree on the hill, the story of the Eldians found its gentle end, finally allowing those who endured it to rest and to dream of a dawn unmarred by titans. High above, stars twinkled like the myriad souls of those who sacrificed for this fragile peace, stars that included the bright lights of Sasha, Hang, Erwin, Marco, and so many more. Levi gazed up at those stars from his porch in the countryside where he spent his quieter days, and in the twinkle of a particularly bright star, he imagined Hang's mischievous grin and Erwin's resolute nod. Far across the sea in Marley, Annie and her father sat on a bench in a rebuilt park, quietly watching the sunset, each lost in their thoughts yet profoundly grateful to simply be side by side. Reiner penned letters he would never send, apologizing to families who'd never know his name yet, whose pain he felt responsible for, and with each letter burned, he forgave himself a little more. On Paradis, Queen Historia oversaw the planting of new forests and the rebuilding of homes. She made sure every orphan child was cared for, fulfilling the vow of a girl once named Krista to be the light for those in the dark. In a gesture of reconciliation, she had a new wing added to the orphanage, named after Ymir, the friend who taught her to live honestly. Sometimes Historia would pause in her royal duties, thinking of Ymir Fritz too, the slave girl whose power carved the world, and hope that, wherever that ancient soul had finally gone, she too had found rest and freedom. "Our island is safe now," she murmured. "Armin and the others, they're trying to make sure we're never put in a cage again. You gave us that chance." She closed her eyes, letting silent tears fall, not of despair but of a tender, bittersweet love. Mikasa finished her conversation and stood up from Eren's grave. As she did, a feathered silhouette swooped down from the branches above, the familiar bird that had kept her company these last years. It gently tugged at Mikasa's red scarf, just as it had done on the day the rumbling ended. Mikasa looked up, a sad smile warming her face. "Thank you," she whispered. And whether she meant it for the bird, for Eren, or for the merciful fate that allowed this moment, perhaps even she didn't know. The bird chirped softly, took flight, and disappeared into the starry sky. As Mikasa walked down the hill toward her home, the first light of dawn touched the east. The sky brightened from deep blue to gentle gold, heralding a new day. And in that dawn, the ghosts of the past seemed to fade, leaving only cherished memories and enduring love. Thus the entire saga of Attack on Titan, which began with the terror of Titans in a long night of fear, ends in the soft promise of morning. History became legend. The Titans became dust on the pages of old books, and those who lived on did so with a renewed understanding that the cost of freedom is high, but the gift of freedom, to choose one's own path, to love, to hope, and to dream, is a treasure beyond measure. In time, Mikasa, Armin, and all their allies would pass on, as all humans do, but their legacy, a world they fought to save, would live on, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest night, the dawn will come, and with it freedom's wings will carry the hearts of the people forward, ever toward the light. In that stillness, Mikasa felt a comforting peace envelop her. She remembered Eren's wish, the dream of a world without walls, and realized that in many ways it had come true. The Great Titan War was over. Children born now would grow up, not as caged birds, but under open skies. Though challenges remained, and healing would take time, the night was tranquil, and the future unwritten, and that in itself was miraculous.